Mr. Speaker, sir, yesterday the Honourable Prime Minister talked about Biman's breakfast. So, therefore, I wish to report to the Honourable Prime Minister that I actually had 2 cups of coffee with my breakfast this morning. I do not know, Mr. Speaker, if the Fiji Times will report this, but if the Honourable Prime Minister had bacon and eggs for breakfast, the Fiji Sun would report that the PM also had a piggery and raised the chickens. Every year, Honourable Speaker, I respond to the budget address and I focus on the same problems. These problems never change. And the root cause of them, in my view, Honourable Speaker, and in the view of many other people in this country, is the poor leadership of this government. I've heard the Honourable MPs, ministers from the other side praise the leadership, but I suppose, Honourable Speaker, they have to do that as part of their job. This year, the Honourable Minister talks about boldness and courage. Mr. Speaker, it does not take courage to cut import duty on luxury cars and electric hair dryers. There is no courage here, there is panic. As my colleague yesterday, Honourable Andre Jale, said, the minister and his government turned up to Parliament more than an hour later to deliver the budget address with no apology and no explanation. This is not courage, this is not boldness. This is disarray and disorganization. Even on budget night, Mr. Speaker, this government did not know what it was doing. Mr. Speaker, it takes courage to face the people and say, we are sorry. We are sorry that for years we've been spending our way into massive debt. And we are sorry that when you have lost your jobs and incomes, we cannot help you. This is what this government should say to the people of Fiji. The Honourable Prime Minister jokes about what I had for breakfast, but if he reads the Fiji Times, he will know the truth, Mr. Speaker. Thousands of children have had no breakfast. They are going hungry right now. But he also knows that people are tired about all the government's talk and no action. They know hungry children cannot wait, so people are taking actions themselves. The real leaders of our country, Mr. Speaker, I dare say, are no longer in government. They are outside, and they are this side. Mr. Speaker, it does not take boldness and courage for this government to go into debt. They know that they will not be around to fix the problem. The Honourable Economy Minister knows it. We all know it. The government, we all know, Mr. Speaker, that the economy is not the only thing on life support. In fact, the future of Fiji First government is on life support. Mr. Speaker, it is too late to fix the situation we are in. The damage has been done, and I want to focus on the future and the economic solution Fiji needs. But before we go there, Mr. Speaker, we need to understand where we are and how we got here. Only then can we understand what must really change. It is very important to tell the truth to the people of this country because they need to know the truth. First, the government has no economic vision for Fiji. It just makes up things as they go along. Suddenly they have abolished stamp duty. Suddenly it has reduced taxes on alcohol. Suddenly it has changed the tax incentives for tourism investment. Every year, Mr. Speaker, mystery surrounds each budget. Nobody knows what is coming. Of course, the Honourable Minister likes it this way because that makes him the centre of attention, I guess. But this is, Mr. Speaker, bad for economic certainty and continuity. And we all know this. We all know this. Investors know this. Investors do not know what is coming. They cannot plan ahead. And whatever happens this year, they know it can easily change the following year. Mr. Speaker, this is a budget of panic. After years of ignoring the tourism industry, the government has decided to cut tourism taxes. We had warned the government. We had warned the government many times in the last 4 years. Honorable Gavoka did the same. The government has decided to cut tourism taxes now. It's abolishing business licenses and stamp duty. All this it says is to make the economy more efficient. But for almost 15 years, Mr. Speaker, almost for 15 years, the government has been running the economy. It has refused to listen to anybody else. The government always knows best. So why has it suddenly started talking about making the economy more efficient now? This year, the government has taken the so-called bold measures. But Mr. Speaker, many people that I talk to, many businesses, they don't believe that this will stay. There is no permanence. Because next year they will want to raise more money. Government will want to raise more money. They will just bring back those things that they've rolled back, like stamp duty and business licenses. They will just call them something different. They will lift the tourism taxes again. This is all what people and investors are saying. Second, Mr. Speaker, the government has no money. Last year, the government's own calculations were $1 billion below budget. That is therefore anybody, this is like before anybody in this country or anywhere in the world, Mr. Speaker, heard anything about the coronavirus. And this is the truth that they need to tell the people. They need to go out and tell the people. They can't just put all the blame on what has happened. The economy was in trouble well before the coronavirus. What happened to the economic boosting and the Bainimarama boom that we had last year? The truth is out now. The economy did not grow last year. It actually went backwards. It was minus 1.3%. The economy was already crashing. Third, Mr. Speaker, the government keeps borrowing money. For years we have warned about the state of government debt. They were telling us we didn't understand debt sustainability. The government has spent like there is no tomorrow, and this year that tomorrow has come. We now face the biggest economic crisis Fiji has faced in 50 years as an independent nation, and the government has no money to help. The government is telling the people, Mr. Speaker, telling the people who have been made unemployed, we will give you $220 per fortnight, but this is not the government's money. This is the people's money. This is what is in the FNPF balances. Government is topping up some people's balances, but with whose money? The World Bank's money, the IMF's money, the Asian Development Bank's money, because our own government, Mr. Speaker, has run out of money well before the coronavirus. But Mr. Speaker, there will be more crisis. Climate change means more crisis. They understand that. In the last 20 years, Suba has not been, thank God, not been hit by earthquake or other natural disasters. But one day, if it does, where will the money come from then? Somewhere, sometime down the line, everything is likely to crash with the way this government is going, Mr. Speaker. It will be a double disaster. The government will have so much debt that it will have to again tax the people hard and to pay it back. And people who need the FNPF to look after them in their old age will have nothing to live on. But Mr. Speaker, this government does not care, because this government knows that when this happens, it will be somebody else's problem. Mr. Speaker, let us understand the headline figures in this budget. My colleagues on this side have talked about this. 2 years ago, it was 3.2 billion. In the year just ended, government raised only 2.7 billion. Now it's down to 1.6 billion. That's understandable. This coming year, the government must repay 1.2, Mr. Speaker, about $1.2 billion in loans and interest. 1.2 billion. That's the fact. That's in the budget estimates. Every Fijian should understand how bad our situation is. So it's very important for our people to understand that. Every month next year, government will have to raise almost 100 million just to pay off loans. $100 million per month just to pay off loans. This is before the government can spend $1 on bandages for our hospitals and textbooks for our school children. Apparently, Mr. Speaker, while people go hungry, the Honorable Prime Minister must have a new office. I don't accept this idea that, when you have a bigger priority, that you need to engage in construction. The economics of it we understand, but what is the priority right now? The priority is something else. This is a government which does not understand priority. But even he must pay off this year's loan before he can pay the concrete. And how are we going to pay the rest of the government to run, Mr. Speaker? We are going to borrow more. We are going to borrow more, and indeed another $2 billion. $2 billion more, Mr. Speaker. And what are we going to do in the year after that? Because the government says it will only collect 1.8 billion next year, and the same amount in the year after that. But this is what the government tells us about next year. This is in the budget supplement, Mr. Speaker. This is what the government tells. In the coming year, it says it will spend 3.6 billion. Then it promises that it will spend about 2.3 billion, that's the target for the 2021-22 target, and then 2.2 billion in 2022-23 target. Now the question is, Mr. Speaker, this government is going to cut spending next year in the following year's budget by 1.3 billion. I want to ask the ministers, when that 1.3 billion cut comes, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? If that is the case, Mr. Speaker, I would say to the Prime Minister that he should cut his cabinet size to 5. Save some millions of dollars to do other things. Because the ministers will have no budget. They will have nothing to do. The permanent secretaries can run the show. But Mr. Speaker, let me say this. There is an election coming in 2022-23. And we all know what this means for the Fiji First government. Big spending, freebies, and strategies to win votes. So this expenditure that has been projected is not going to be around. So the government will keep spending and will keep borrowing, and Fiji will get deeper and deeper into debt. By the end of this government's term, Mr. Speaker, and I predict by the end of 2022, I predict that Fiji's debt to GDP ratio could well be about 100% or higher. And that is the reality that I want to tell the people of this country. More and more of our money, there is plenty wrong with that, Honorable Prime Minister. More and more of our money will just go to paying our loans. So, Mr. Speaker, we need to look urgently to the future. What will we get, or what will get us out of this mess? We need economic strategies that deal with our short-term and our long-term problems. Let's begin our short-term problems. These are stark. The worst short-term problem is people are going hungry in this country, Mr. Speaker. This economic crisis means that people are going without food. Nowhere in his speech does the Honourable Minister talk about this, because I think that it will be too embarrassing for the government. So he talks about the global economy, they talk about what's happening in other countries, but nowhere they talk about how to help people who are struggling to put food on the table. But everybody in Fiji knows. Ask school owners like TISI Sangam, who are preparing lunches for students. Ask ordinary citizens like Alan Lockington and Mr. Narayan Reddy of Lautoka. They have gathered a group together to supply groceries to hundreds of families in the Lautoka area. Also uplifting the lives of hundreds of rural women for more than a decade is Shashi Kiran of Friends, who is now expanding her work to look after the underprivileged. I was astounded, Mr. Speaker, that a person of her character and credibility was ridiculed as having a political agenda yesterday by Honourable Minister Bala through his interjections. Ask Mrs. Samima Ali about how women and children are struggling to put food on the table. Ask the people who are supplying food parcels to hungry families in Lemi. These are the real problems our poorest people are facing, Mr. Speaker. And while ordinary citizens work to solve this problem, the government looks the other way. People in FNPF may have get access to their money. They may even get some top-up from the aid money the government is receiving. But what about farmers, fishermen, casual workers like gardeners, house helpers? Their income depends on others having money, and who will help them? All over the country, ordinary citizens, religious and charitable organizations have stepped in to fill the gap. They have spoken up. They have told the government what is really happening. These are people with the skills and experience, deep social networks, and the passion to help others. These are the people who should be the government's partners, who can deal with the deep economic and social pain that the poorest in our country are feeling. Why is the government not supporting them? But from the government, nothing. No money, no support, not even encouragement, not even thanks for the work they are doing. The Honourable Minister just pretends that they are not there. Mr. Speaker, every day the government has the opportunity to partner with civil society, not just in times of crisis, every day in education, in welfare, in issues like health and domestic violence, but every day the government is looking the other way. Because of how this government thinks, only the government may control things. Only the government may get the credit for helping others. The first thing we need, Mr. Speaker, long-term partnerships, people working together, our people helping others of our people, and government supporting this with cash and good policies. Every day, Mr. Speaker, is a missed opportunity. Next, Mr. Speaker, what are we doing with our own time now? Tens of thousands of people have lost their jobs. Many of them have skills that they could pass on to others. These are skills like basic numeracy, literacy, like budgeting, better health and nutrition, growing food, protecting the environment. These are all skills we should be building for the future. Why isn't the government starting programs to build skills while people have the time to acquire these skills? Finally, Mr. Speaker, it is time for us to share in making economic policy. We've talked about for many years. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition talked about it. We need a National Economic Summit process to discuss future economic policy, not a one-day workshop. Economic Summit to chart an economic vision and carry it out. This is how we start, Mr. Speaker. The economy belongs to us, everyone. It belongs to employers, workers, to the richest and the poorest. It does not belong to this government or to a single minister. For example, Mr. Speaker, we need to ask, what is the future of the sugar industry? Thousands of people still depend on it. The industry is supposed to have been reformed. There is a new mechanical harvester here and there and a new feeder road upgrade. This is not reform. Government has been talking about reform for many years. There is hardly any reform there. We are still producing bulk sugar to sell at prices below our cost of making it. And we are selling it to people who don't even want to buy it now. Our business model has not changed for over 100 years. The government has been talking about for the last 13 years. But the world has changed, and Fiji has also changed. And many people, Mr. Speaker, are tired of supporting the sugar industry because they see no change there. Why is there no conversation about what must change? We've talked about this many times, joint parliamentary committees, etc. Mr. Speaker, now we are going to encourage new industries like agriculture, outsourcing services and new technology. The government seems to think that this can just be fixed through tax incentives and everything will be fine. But that thinking, Mr. Speaker, has been an absolute failure. Just on Sunday, I don't know whether the Honourable Minister for Education watched that MyTV program. In fact, the commentators, the 5 commentators there, Mr. Speaker, talked about the dire state of Fiji's education system and the need for change. I wonder if the Minister is rethinking about the idea of Education Commission to look at the whole education system in this country that we've talked about. And I think this is probably not a bad time to think about an Education Commission. Mr. Speaker, the solutions we have suggested, our colleagues have suggested, and many of them have highlighted some very, very specific areas where government can look at it. But every day, those solutions are becoming more and more relevant. We've suggested this before to the government, and of course the government's response we all know. Mr. Speaker, this is a time of severe economic crisis. We need a government that is not afraid to ask for help and new ideas. They need to have the courage. They are in government, they are in power. Asking the opposition, asking those who criticize them is not a sign of weakness. In fact, it's a sign of strength. Or it will be a sign of strength for this government to ask for help. We need the leadership of a government that will bring together all of our people to pool our best ideas for a common and economic social vision. We wrote to the Honourable Prime Minister, and we know his reply in Parliament. Mr. Speaker, I would urge the government to show some leadership, show courage, show boldness, shed the ego, shed the arrogance, and bring people together. But we know, I want to tell the people of this country, Mr. Speaker, that that will not happen until this government is gone. And Mr. Speaker, most people in this country today are now praying for that day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.